Southwestern family of companies welcomes you to the Action Catalyst. With each episode, our diverse and amazingly accomplished guests share their insights and inspirations to help us ignite our own. So let's invest attention, together, to breathe, to reflect, and refocus, and decisively defeat that voice that we call Mr. Mediocrity. Then let's enjoy moving forward to make a positive difference in our world.
Are you interested in advertising with the Action Catalyst? Our listeners could be hearing about your brand right here, right now. For details, shoot us an email at info@theactioncatalyst.com.
You are going to hear the story today of Maurice Clarett, who was a collegiate football star, superstar, who won the national championship, broke the college rushing record, scored the winning touchdown, was on the top of the world, and then completely crashed, ended up in prison, and separated from his family, had caught up in drugs and all sorts of scandals. And then you're going to hear a little bit about what happens next and what happened after that. It is a story of epic proportions. I mean, it's like a movie.
So, Maurice, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. I said welcome. Thank you for inviting me on.
So before we hear about what happened post-college, tell me about what your life was like growing up. Like, where did you grow up? Who was around? What was it like? You know, how did you kind of get into football and end up making your way to Ohio State?
Well, I come from Youngstown, Ohio. Youngstown, for everyone who doesn't know, is a very blue-collar area. Still literally ran our town for decades, providing a level of living. And when Black Monday sort of came, which is the day where you had a bunch of steel mills sort of shut down, the town became very desolate. And I was like in the 1970s. And following that, towards the 80s and 90s, when I grew up. I was born in 1983. But in the early 90s, you had a huge crack epidemic wave. You had a huge violent rave all throughout the inner city. And it definitely affected the area that I grew up in. And I grew up on a block called Ravenwood. And in the block, it was, a bunch of single-parent living, about 40 boys who all grew up within the same age range of one another, within a 3 to 5 year age range. And it was just a very competitive, aggressive, but fun-filled childhood growing up, and a lot of what takes place in inner cities, around America, just as Youngstown, Ohio, or Chicago, or somewhere in Florida or California, or somewhere. But what takes place a lot amongst kids, and I'm speaking in retrospect, is that the kid who gets in trouble, or the kid who does the most violent things, seems to get all the respect, and, or the kid who sells the most drugs. These guys seem to garner more respect from, other individuals. And so, just coming up at a young age and seeing it all through my neighborhood, I caught myself gravitating towards the activities of doing sort of stupid things, or things that would be deemed irresponsible now, but were cool to my neighborhood then. And I spent a lot of time playing sports, but also I spent a lot of time being a knucklehead. And what really started happening when I was a child, like I had my mother was in my life. She worked at this place called Neil-UCOM, Northeast Ohio University College of Medicine. And she would go to work every morning about 7:30, and she would get home every night between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. And what would happen, my dad wasn't in the picture. So what would happen is that me and my brother would go to school, and when we would come home from school, it was just basically all of the kids in the neighborhood were raising each other. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
So being around 10 or 11 years old, I got incarcerated for the first time. The first time I got incarcerated, I stole a car, went on a joyride, and lo and behold, I ended up getting incarcerated. I spent about 2 or 3 days in the juvenile institution, came back home, and when I came back home, I was like, so happy and so glad that, this stuff that took place in my life. I went to jail, and I was like, the rites of passage, and, I was considered to be cool at that time. So the second part, or the second thing that happened, I got out of jail, came back to society living. I'm one of the cool guys amongst the cool guys. And maybe about a month later, I got into a fist fight with some guys from the other side of town. I was about 11 or 12 years old, and I was real big for my age, and I was probably about 5'10" at the time. Like probably 180 pounds, I was real big as a kid. And I ended up going back to the juvenile hall. But when this time I went, they sentenced me to about 30 days, and I spent, 30 days in the institution. And I thought, hey, I'm a little bit cooler now. Like, I'm tough, I'm hard. I have this juvenile jail persona around me. And I felt like this was like a cool deal. And this was like after my brothers had went, and I felt like, I was just one of the gang. And I didn't really realize that, I was just kind of leading my life in a different direction. And so after that, they brought me up to institution. My mother tried to get me in like, AAU basketball and track and other activities to try to occupy my time. I love these sports very much, but I also love the attention from anything that went on in the streets, even as a kid. I just used to love that attention or that acceptance from, the guys who were in my neighborhood. And so I stayed out of trouble maybe for a year or two. And the last time that kind of really changed my life and got me into football full time, was like, I went to go break into an individual's house. And as we broke in, there was a gentleman sleeping inside the house, and he woke up, he came out. And as he came out, he seen us, rummaging through his things, and he runs down the hallway, runs down the steps, and shuts himself in a room. And, I'm running to try to get out the house, and I jump through the window, second story window, bust my head on the window, kind of slither down the side of the house. I bust my head on the ground, I jump over the fence, and, I'm tripped up and blood is everywhere. And lo and behold, I'm like, wow, this was kind of crazy. But eventually I ended up getting caught. And so before I got caught, I had 13 staples in my hand, and, I went back to the juvenile facility, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this time I'm going to the juvenile prison, which was in Columbus, Ohio. And this were like all the kids from around the state who were required to go to like the state institution, the detention facilities. That's what these kids were kind of headed to. And so, make a long story short, the judge had agreed to allow this gentleman, who was a correctional officer named Mr. Roland Smith. She allowed him to kind of interject into what was going on. And so Mr. Roland had came to me about like 2:00 in the morning, I believe, when he was working. I was like, man, what are you doing? You're messing up your life. I know your mother, I know your father, you're not supposed to be in this situation. And, like just in retrospect, he was speaking life into me, he was speaking more over my life and, over, what I could become and what I could be doing myself besides, ripping, running, jumping and getting in trouble. And so he said, I'm going to see if the judge allows me to put you on house arrest. And if she can, I want to kind of like be your mentor and help you to get into football and just add some positive male structure. So I agreed to it, obviously because I didn't want to go to jail. The judge agreed to it because she saw the benefit of him basically like being and taking that role over me. And the next thing you know, we just started to move forward. And so throughout the summertime, I would go back and forth to workouts. I would be getting in shape, and I would come home and spend my time at home because I had one of those ankle monitors on when I was being at home throughout the summer. And it was healthy for me. It was healthy for me to be in that environment and then also go back home. And so going into my freshman year now, this is how everything sort of burst up.
High school or college?
Yeah, high school. And so when I come to my freshman year in high school, I go to a school called Austin Fitch, and I had no idea of like how good I was. I just thought like, I was good in my own hometown, but amongst other guys and kids who were 3-4 years older than me, I thought these kids were like way beyond my level of talent. And so I got here, and lo and behold, on my first 3 or 4 games, I ended up starting on the varsity team, and I had a tremendous amount of success in about 3 or 4 weeks. A few 100-yard games, a couple of 200-yard games, and I just had really made an impact in the town that we were playing. And so I hurt my ankle in the process. And when I hurt my ankle, I just had a chance to kind of look at it like, man, I don't have to go back to the neighborhood no more. I can actually go to college. It wasn't anything from an academic standpoint, but it was like, man, if I really take football serious, if I really lift weights, if I really sprint, if I really get in shape, if I really, do that, I can obviously, do something with my life. And so the whole fascination with the neighborhood was just gold. It was just like there was something new to do, and it was like a cool.
You had a new vision.
And so that same thing happened in 9th grade. In the middle of my 9th grade, I transferred to a school called Warren Harding. And that was because they were sending guys to more elite Division I level schools, and they historically did it. And so year 2 had happened, year 3 had happened. And going into my senior year, I had traveled the country and had seen guys playing. And there was like just a confidence that came over me. And I was like, when I started seeing these guys do stuff, I was like, man, like I'm not just one of the best guys in my area or one of the best guys in the state, like in my heart. And it was spoken from a level of confidence and not cockiness. I said, I'm better than all these guys across the country. And it was just how I felt about myself and in my heart, just like a supreme confidence. And I go out my senior year, we win a bunch of games and win the National Player of the Year. And the next thing you know, I'm heading off to college. So I graduate early, I go to college, and, that the whole process starts over again. It's like, okay, can I do this again? I was a big man on campus when I left my high school.
Right.
But do you have what it takes to do this at the collegiate level? And I found myself working so much out of fear, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I want to perform the same way that I performed in high school. So I have to lift every weight, I have to make every meet, I have to watch every video, I have to do everything. But there was nothing that I felt I had to do from a characteristic standpoint, from a behavioral standpoint, or even from an academic standpoint. Those things were totally neglected. Everything in my neighborhood is animalistic. Everything is primitive. Everything is, if we have a problem, let's fight, or if we want to do something, everything is physical. You have to have no intellect to navigate most inner cities. Everything is a think, shoot, and things of that nature. And so, to a large part, sports is that way. There's not a lot of thinking. There's a lot of like reaction and tenacity and attitude and approach and just things that you work on naturally come to the forefront. And just, and a lot of this stuff I'm speaking in retrospect, but I just know, like, at that moment, there was nothing for me to identify in my life that you needed character for something else. You know what I'm saying? It was just straight, let me just be a beast, let me lift weights, and just let me get on the football field. And we go through the entire off season, and 2 weeks before the season, I end up gaining the starting position. And this was like a big deal for Ohio State. They had a long legacy of Eddie George and Robert Smith and Archie Griffith and, just a tremendous amount of talent before me. And to reach that position as a freshman, it was a big deal. And so, we come on the scene, and in my first game, I'm nervous as heck. I don't sleep the night before. I'm thinking like, man, can I actually do this? And I go out the first game and I run for 175 yards. And like, it was a big deal. I had success in practice, but I was like, can you transfer that thing to the football field? And so, lo and behold, and I said all that, and I know I said a lot during the beginning part, but it all brings context to everything that I'm about to talk about now.
Yeah. So tell me, what is it like to win the national championship?
Phenomenal on the field, all the accolades, all of the attention, to be able to go inside of a grocery store or a CVS or Walmart, or whatever you want to call it, and to be able to see your face on a magazine, to start something out with guys as a vision inside of a locker room, and you have common goals. And a lot of the games that we were winning were very close, and guys sort of enjoying that. That was like the most phenomenal thing. But one thing that became a lapse, or one thing that became a hindrance to me, was that the little kid who never grew up and only became good in football, he started to emerge the more famous I became. So the same little kid who was getting locked up, the same little kid who enjoyed just miscellaneous sex and miscellaneous attention and miscellaneous activity with everything, that kid started to emerge the more famous he became. And all of the fame, I didn't have the skill or the character to store it. You know what I'm saying? And so when it came and it happened, I didn't realize I was out of control, and I didn't realize that I was just acting without a level of humility, and it soon burst. You know what I'm saying? So we go out, we win the national championship. At this time, LeBron stays about 30 minutes away from me when I stayed in Youngstown, and he's on his meteoric rise in Akron. And, every chance I get, I'm running back up and down the freeway to see him play basketball at their arena. And it's just crazy. He's sending me shoes and jogging suits and T-shirts and everything, and Adidas, Nike, and everybody wanted him at this time. And it was like a phenomenal time. I remember, going on tour with 50 Cent and Jay-Z and Fabulous and Snoop Dogg. And this was just like the craziest thing in my life. And I'm a 19-year-old kid, so my perception reality, or what a college sophomore should be at this time, was totally jaded, totally jaded. And so at the end of the season, at the end of the spring, I headed to my second year, the NCAA came in. They said, "Hey, Maurice, we would like to investigate you for things that haven't been taking place." And I thought, my heart was like, man, there's no way that even the school will allow me to be suspended, because I'm worth so much to the program. But lo and behold, they found 125 violation. They suspend me. indefinitely. And at that point, that's when like the mental collapse came in. And this was like mental health and mental health issues and depression and things that you have never dealt with. These things like came to the forefront of my brain. And so, when you're going through something from a physical standpoint, in football, you can just either watch more film and lift weights and you get how to get better in that. But when you're going through a depression or when you're sleeping 2 hours a night, or when you're getting up every day just always thinking negative about something, you don't realize or understand how to even combat that, deal with that. Who do you talk to? How do you deal with it the whole night? And I found myself a lot of times either going back out to the nightclubs I was going to hang out at, getting drunk, going to have sex with women, doing everything to occupy myself or to distract myself from me basically being depressed. And so a year I went by, I tried to challenge the NFL for early entry. That didn't help. They rejected me. I ended up going to California, and I went to California just to get away from Ohio and try to get away from every distraction that I had. But the lifestyle, the culture of Los Angeles was completely different from Columbus, Ohio. And I'm out of football for a couple of years or so. It didn't do anything, but just, it compounded the situation. And to make a long story short, over 2 years, I spent a lot of time just partying and having fun when I was supposed to be preparing for football, but football just seemed like it was never coming back around. I was also depressed. So I come to the NFL Combine 2 years later. I'm preparing, and I fail horribly at the Combine. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I'm not going to get drafted. Like, there's no way this is going to happen for me. I've been out of football for 2 years. I performed horribly at the Combine. I'm not in the greatest shape anymore. And just my heart just wasn't into the game. It was just like, I got beat up so much just from media stuff and the ups and downs and just the rigor of going through something very public. And so I was like, okay, I'll just watch the draft when it comes on out of curiosity. So the draft comes on, first 2 rounds come on, and I'm seeing guys getting drafted and going up on the stage and families crying and all that stuff. And this was actually making me more depressed because I was like just thinking like, man, that's supposed to be me. And so we go forward, and, the ball's kind of rolling down the road. First round goes by, second round goes by. I get in the car, I'm riding around the 405, and Denver calls me. And they say, hey, Maurice, we would love to bring you out to make you a Bronco. Congratulations, the plane tickets, you're going to be there tomorrow. So I'm like, man, the plane ticket to be here tomorrow. Life is great. I can't wait to get out there. Pumped up on the left hand, but then on the right hand, I'm like, I know for a fact I'm not prepared. I think anybody who even listens to this, some of us have been given opportunities that we know inherently or innately that we're not prepared to steward. And the next thing you know, at some point, the wheels will fall off on this thing. So I got out to Denver. I was out of shape, and the altitude didn't make it any worse. And one thing I didn't know how to get to Denver. And so the combination of all of that, me being out of shape, me having every bad habit you could possibly name, me having bad character, all those things were just beginning to surface. So like midway through camp, Coach Shanahan calls me over and said, man, Maurice, I know you had a tough time before you got here. And I know, we would like to help you and support you. And they tried to pair me with a sports psychologist. And so for me, I was like, man, I don't want a sports psychologist. Like, what is it going to help me to talk to this lady? You know what I'm saying? It just totally blew her off. And so we kept going on inside the season, and they tried to approach me again with the woman. And so she set me down, and she was trying to figure out what was going on. And I just rejected her again. Said, hey, lady, I don't want anything to do with you. Not in a rude way, but just like, I'm cool. I don't want to do this. I just didn't feel comfortable talking to her. And so, the next thing you know, the preseason comes around. I don't get in the games. They kick me off the team. And then I'm back out to California, as a rejected free agent. And so now I circle back. I come to Ohio. When I get back to Ohio, I'm even more depressed. I'm isolated, not social, not really know where to pick up the pieces at. And I found myself right back into the streets, right, running around, hustling, selling drugs, robbing people. And eventually that led to a robbery case in downtown Columbus on New Year's Eve of 2005. A few weeks after that, literally a few weeks after that, I found out that my lady I'm with now, we're still together. She was pregnant with our daughter, and she's pregnant with the daughter. I'm kicked out of the NFL. I'm kicked out of college, and just like everything was just like boom, boom, bam, down the slippery slope of depression. And 9 months after that, that was like when the big arrest had happened on TV. I got into a high-speed chase with the police officers when they tried to pull me over, and they caught with a bunch of guns and a bulletproof vest on, and at that point, everything in my life had eventually stopped, and everything that I was doing was kind of shut down. And I knew I got arrested and was driving downtown to the courthouse. I was like, it's over. I'll be in prison. It's not like your mother can't come and get you. Yeah, your coach can't come and get you. This is like the principal's office. You know what I'm saying? This is the real deal. I ended up going downtown to the prison. And when I got down there, they set me in the county jail. And the irony of all this is that the judge was like, hey, we're not going to start a trial or any level of our proceedings until you get a mental health evaluation. And so I went to go get a mental health evaluation. I get diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And after that, I was waiting for court. They sent me inside of a cell, like a 9x4 cell, for 23 hours of the day, no windows, pure isolation. You got 20 minutes to go take a shower inside of another cell, another 20 minutes to use the phone if you're able to afford the phone call, and another 20 minutes at that point for recreation to go from one cell to another cell. That was just like, just horrible, and I spent that time like that for 7 months. And so, after all of that isolation, all that lockdown, they finally shipped me to the prison. I'm sentenced to 7.5 years. And it was like a blessing from God happened on my second day when I was there. And so I got there my second day. I was called down to our central office, and the warden of the prison, his name was Mr. Clarett. Mr. Clarett is probably one of the most beautiful individuals I've ever met in my life. And the spirit is like, none other. And he said, hey, Maurice, my son's your same age. And he's like, in life, we make mistakes or bad choices. And he was like, the police don't catch criminals. Criminals catch themselves. They just don't know how to stop it. I just remember saying that, right? And he was like, essentially what he said, he was like, my father used to be the chief of Sierra Leone. And he said when guys would get in trouble in Sierra Leone, he would bring them closer, figure out what's going on, repair them, and send them back so they could be better people. And he said, but in America, when guys get in trouble, we just happen to throw them away and put them in a system where we just keep throwing them away. And he said, and so what he told me, he was like, I'm going to give you a bunch of coursework to do while you're here. And if you accept it, it's on you. And if you don't, it's on you as well. And essentially what the coursework was, it was a bunch of psychosocial rehabilitative services. And so I was like, I agree. I had to do 4 years mandatory. I was like, man, I've been wrecking my head into the wall for the last 3 or 4 years, or two or 3 years. Like, I just knew I needed some assistance with my life. And so the next thing you know, I started going back and forth to these courses every day. So you would get up at 8 in the morning. Your first class may be at 8:30, and you probably wouldn't get back to the dormitory or to the housing unit until about like 4:35. It was like a regular job of some sorts, right? And so after a while, you get to spend the time around different guys, and you get to have conversations about anger management and responsible adult culture and thinking for change and the 5 languages or 7 love languages. And you start to have classes that help you to develop or speak into different parts of yourself that you've never spoken into. You start to realize that there was more inside of you this whole time. You just never had the space or a chance to explore it. And so from there, I would ask myself, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with your life? Like, you can't play football. You'll get out of prison, if you're lucky at 28, but if you're not lucky, you'll get out like at 32 or something like that. And I said, forget this, man. I gotta get my life in order. And so I went like into this football mode. I said, okay, when I wanted to play football and learn how to be better, like I did nothing. And I mean, absolutely nothing but just watch video after video after video of great people. So I said, man, if I want to be great in life, I just got to study from great businessmen or investors or people who are just successful. So I went on just this whole tangent of just reading anything I got my hands on. Anytime I see a magazine, I will put my hands on it. I start, just getting money from different people who were supportive of me during my incarceration, and everything from Fortune, Forbes, and Economist, and the Economist was one of my best favorite magazines, and like Inc. and 300 and everything you possibly in the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, or Vindicator, the Columbus Dispatch, everything I would just have coming into my cell. And then there was a thing called Bargain Books. And Bargain Books allows you to order books for like $3 or $4. And I would just like to order 15 books at a time. And so there was so much isolation in prison that all you had to do was just sit and read. That's what you see when guys come out of prison, they're well read, is because like when you're isolated, you sit down so much in a cell, you literally have nothing to do. You just read and write. I just got into that habit, over 4 years. There's no party on the weekends or let's go out and hang out with the family after dinner. It's like intense training, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
You're physically getting together, you're mentally getting together, And after about 2 years, I began to teach some of the classes I had went through. And so, after 4 years of becoming like a model, like I said, a model prisoner, if that isn't a thing, and I don't want to say a leader because there's a lot of men who are a lot tougher than me in prison, but to become a well-respected gentleman, among a bunch of gentlemen, it was easy to see that I had my stuff together, I mind my business, and I handle my business. And so, for the most part, they let me out after 4 years. I got out. I went back to Ohio State for a summer school course. And when I go back in the midst of that, there was a gentleman who called me, the old Denver Broncos general manager, Ted Sunquist. He had called me back to play in a minor league in Omaha, Nebraska. So I go out to Omaha, Nebraska, and I had like the time of my life when I was out there. I was just like enjoying life and playing football again. And I was doing it because I was broke and, I needed the money. My little girl was poor at the time. And, obviously I needed to be able to provide for her and get the furniture for the house and the vehicle and all that other stuff that, I just didn't have. And I'll tell you one cool story that happened to me when I was out there. Now, when I was in prison, they talk about the law of attraction. Some people believe it's phony and some people believe it's real. But I'll tell you just one thing that happened to me. When I was in prison, I think I know Warren Buffett's entire life from A to Z, as it is written. Our coach, when we were in Omaha, Nebraska, my second year, his name was Joe Moglia. And Joe Moglia was like the CEO for TD Ameritrade for about 8 years. But he had stepped down in 2000 and I want to say 9 or 8 from being the chairman of the board. From being the active CEO and then to be the chairman of the board. And he became a football coach, which I thought was very interesting, to make all that money and then to say, hey, I want to go coach football. So he ended up landing in Omaha, Nebraska and coaching our team. And so one day he was like, hey, Maurice, I think your story is kind of interesting. How about you meet me at the golf course? And so I'm like, all right, cool. We're going to meet at the golf course. And when I go to the golf course, he just was like this, like, tell me a story. And so we're just chatting back and forth. And throughout the process of us chatting, he's like, hey, how about you do this? He was like, tell me, like, what was the reform like in prison? And I told him, like, that one person I was very fascinated with and in life in general, which is the Warren Buffett and his level of humility with all of what he had. And he was like, you know what? Warren Buffett's a good friend of mine. Let me see if he'll meet you. Something in myself, like, man.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm 18 months removed from prison. Like, Warren Buffett don't want to meet me, my man. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, all right, cool. Like, whatever. And so I kind of blew him off. And next thing I know, it was a Wednesday walking to my apartment. And my phone rings. And, like, even from seeing him on Charlie Rose so much, as soon as he acted like, hey, can I speak to Maurice? And I'm like, speaking. He's like, hey, it's Warren. He's like, he said, Joe told me that you want to meet me. And I'm like, what? He was like, yeah. He was like, when do you have time? He was like, do you have anything going on Saturday? And I was like, man, if I did, it's canceled. Don't worry about it. You better believe it. And so, I was like, I went to, I didn't have any money. So I went to, like, TJ Maxx or Marshalls or something. And, like, I got my best clothes. I'm like, I thought, like, let me spend all I can on that outfit because I got to get a picture. You got to look good. And so I went down to, the Kiwi building. And when I get over there, I come in and an appointment, just kind of show you how God works in your life. An appointment that he was about to do, they canceled on him. And so when I came up there, we were just supposed to be shake a hand, take a picture, and roll out. And so I had my family with me. He was like, hey, I was like, hey, do you mind if he was like, hey, do you want to stay and chat? Because my appointment was gone. And I said, do I want to stay and chat? I'm like, absolutely. Like, what I'm saying, let's go. Wow. We sat there. He was like, Maurice, I talk a lot. I was like, I don't mind listening. You know what I'm saying? And so for like 4 hours, just going back and forth with him, unscripted, just straight freestyler, just hanging out with the man. Beautiful moment in my life, my man. And that was cool. But, just to kind of jump back into like the main story. After being in Omaha for 2 years, the league that we were in, it had shut down. And after that, there was a, what is it called? There was a probation or a clause in my probation that required me to be in Omaha to play football because I had 5 years upon my release. And then they shifted me back to Ohio. And when I came back to Ohio, in the interim of that, you had ESPN reach out and say, hey, we would like to do a 30 for 30 in your life. And, I didn't know what a 30 for 30 was. And then they reached out, we agreed to the video, and basically we shot it over like the next 8 months. And one day when it came out, my email and my I didn't even know what Facebook was. I didn't even know how to go in and look at stuff. I didn't know what fan page, regular stuff was. I barely knew how to work an email, but it kind of blew up overnight. And I had, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds to come and speak. And, I wasn't even prepared to speak. I was just trying to get my life in order. And so people was like, hey, can you come and tell your story? And I'm like, I don't even know how to tell it, but I'll try. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even if you just ask me questions, I'll like, we'll start right there. And so next thing you know, I just got on the plane and I learned how to speak on the fly. And I got around the country and I got in front of people's faces with, just from different businesses to churches to youth organizations to collegiate football teams and basketball teams and track teams and recovery centers and anything that you could possibly think of. And I'm pretty sure I can speak to, 70 to 80 times a year, the various venues and the places that, some people may not realize, that's out there that you're able to speak at. I just kind of got on faces. And, after about 3 years, it kind of beat me up, so I applaud you for having the stamina to travel that much. But for me, it was beating me up. I was like, I'm never home. My daughter's growing up. I just spent 3 years in prison. And to just spend 3 years in prison, then to get back on the road for 3 years and just be gone, 4 days a week. Right. It can be hard. Yes, it's very hard, very, very hard. So I said, I studied entrepreneurship when I was in prison. I had a chance. I was very fortunate to be able to get paid just to speak, which I think is like crazy. You're paid to speak. And, they paid me and I was sitting on some money I was able to invest into some trucks. I was like, transportation is a relatively easy industry to understand. And I also got into some real estate. And so I started letting those things grow and build and create the residual income for myself. And I got into the packaging business from the transportation business and, things just started to grow. And one thing after, I went to a youth organization, whatever it's called, like symposium. And they had a bunch of student athletes here. This kind of like changed my life into the space I'm in now. And I finally think that I'm in my life's work and I really feel that way. But I was speaking at a youth organization and these people had a breakout session. And in the breakout session, there was a gentleman who was presenting something that I basically was teaching in prison. And I really got the material from another book that I had got, but it was a thing called the AMBC, the Activate Event, the Mind Activity, the Body Reaction, the Consequences. And it was basically teaching kids cognitively how to process information or conflict or just whatever it was going on in their lives. And I was like, hey, my man, I used to teach this when I was in prison. Like, do you mind if I engage with the kids? I just enjoy teaching. And next thing you know, we're sitting there, we're going through the lesson or the lecture. And after we were over, I was like, my man, what do you do? He was like, I own a behavioral health agency. And so at that time, I never knew what a behavioral health agency was. I was like, just the platform to engage with people. And I knew it was a platform because I remember when I went down to LSU, and I remember speaking to Leonard Fournette after we were done. I don't know why. I think it was just because it was health. And it was like the magnitude of it. And the year before that was Derrick Henry when he played at Alabama. But all these young guys, they would come up to me and it was like, I understand where you're at, but how do I get from where I'm at to where you're at? And it's like never just one, it's not one book. It's not not just one thing. It's a process of you continuously working on your mind and working on your body and everything else. And I just was like, this is the stuff that kind of changed my life in prison over a period of time. And I thought that it was cool that there was a vehicle out here to deliver information like this. And, and I went from there. And to make a long story short, I got with an agency or got with the company to help me develop my policies and procedures and things that I wanted to do within my agency. And over, probably, I think it started October 15th when we started sitting down and developing this work. And then June of 2016, we opened our doors up and we went back to the Youngstown community. And I intentionally went back into these neighborhoods and back to dealing with these schools and kids that I basically had dealt with. And we also do mental health for adolescents and adults, but we also deal with recovery. We're partly a mental health agency and part of a treatment facility. And so we started going back into these schools and, we work with probably, I think, about 300 families right now. We have about 27 employees. We do direct services in school, after school, a bunch of family counseling, and just a bunch of cool stuff where we engage with people. We do a bunch of outpatient services with adults. We house about 30 men, about 15 women, and we just help these people who happen to be in recovery, affected by either alcohol or opioid epidemic or anything that in their life. things that basically affected me personally. And this work is sort of like near and dear to my heart. That's sort of my life, it's sort of like what I have going on. And I like, it's just been a journey, and it's kind of like, or thing you go through, prior, to where you're in life. It kind of teaches you and helps you or propel you to the next.
Well, Maurice, I wanted people to hear this story because it blew me away. And is it fair to say that personal development had a pretty dramatic change on reshaping your life?
It is the essence of the change in my life, and it's the essence of our agency is called the Red Zone. It's the essence of what we do. It's all personal development. School teaches you, gives you instruction, it teaches you like specific skills in specific areas, but being able to apply what you know, being able to pump yourself up, being able to stay disciplined, being able to stay in the right frame of mind, being able to engage with others, and all the other skills that you get from building or just going through personal development material in general is the cornerstone of my change. I will personally believe in all psychosocial rehabilitative services is nothing more than just personal development. It's just being brought in a clinical way.
I do have one other question. And before I do, I wanted to ask you too, like, where do you want people to go to kind of learn more about you and connect with you? And
if they want to connect with me, they can do MauriceClarett.com, and I'll have everything for me personally.
Yeah, Maurice, I just wanted to say, thank you for sharing your story. And most of all, thank you for making such a dramatic turnaround in your life. Thank you, my friend.
Well, here we go. Thank you. Now, and I heard this before I go. God only uplifts you and puts you in position to uplift others. And my life, nothing more, nothing less, isn't about me. It's about basically people putting me in position, or God put me in position to be in a position to uplift others. So everything is all good. I can't complain, but thank you again. Thank you for having me.
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast, and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.